Yeah, this is our topic today on the origin of Indonesian foreign policy. And there is a request from your friend to re-explain on the foreign policy process. So before I enter to our topic today, I will back to our lesson last day. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, let us to start, yeah, because I hope we can start on time. Okay, all participants. Our topic today is on the origin of Indonesian foreign policy. The most prominent person in this topic is Mohammad Hatta, our first vice president. He was a liberal, a democratic person, intellectual, graduate from Leiden University, Malay person, and moderate, very different from his couple in politics, Sukarno. It's very different. From the beginning, Muhammad Hatta and Sukarno represent different political group, ethnic, geopolitics, and also ideology. So there is no Sukarno in Proclamation Day without Muhammad Hatta, because Muhammad Hatta represent not only Malay people, not only ideology and politics, but also represent outside Java people. In 1945, the population of the new Indonesian government or state was more than 70 million people. But 70% more maybe stay in Java Island. So the domination of Java people in independent movement is very, very significant at that time. Muhammad Hatta represent the outside Java. So it is the represent from the leader from outside Java also. Okay, but before I enter this point of view, I will back to last slide. Yeah, just moment, not in long time. Okay. This is our last chart on how to understand foreign policy formulation. To understand this, it is good for us to remember what David Easton stated in political system chart. The model slightly the same. Maybe this is the core model from decision-making process in democratic state, although not the same precisely, but this is the model, like this. So there is input, conversion, or the process when executive and legislative discussion, debate, and some discourse inside. And after that, output. Surrounding the system, there is international environment, also domestic environment. Demand, support as input. We understand that not all of the demand get enough support to enter the decision-making process. For example, people have 100 demand, but after selected aspiration, this aspiration, not all of the aspiration get a big or strong support from the people. So not all of the demand can enter the decision-making process. There is selection here. Public opinion is very important to bring demand or aspiration as formally input in decision-making process. In the conversion process, legislative, executive convert from aspiration, not legal base. Aspiration demand is not legal base. Convert to be decision. This is a legal base or action. So the conversion happen in government, in parliament, or lawmakers. After decide something, decision here, scholar have different explanation. Sometimes decision, what is decision? Decision is policies and action. Sometimes scholars say that decision is different from policy and action. What is different? Decision just decide something to be or not to be, or yes or not, guilty or not guilty. It is decision. Yeah, it's just one definition. What is policy? Policy is a more complex decision, relatively long time period, and sometimes include the strategy. So policy more complex, more sophisticated. Not only yes or not. That is policy. And what is action? Action, you do something or not something in emergency, for example. If there is a disaster, our country will send humanitarian aid or not. Our country will join in peace guard or not, peace army or not in Palestine, in for example today in Lebanon or not. The action, there is no administration after that, or just a little administration. You do something or not. The important thing is you action. Yeah, this is also output. So action, policies, and decision. Scholars said there is a precise meaning, but sometimes a group of scholars said that decision is the policy and action. It is our understanding. Okay, after conversion, we enter the output or decision, but there is no output. There is no output. Doesn't criticized by other. So why? Because there is the iron law of decision, both internationally and domestically. What is the iron law of decision making process? The iron law of decision-making process is there is no decision without rejection. There is no decision without rejection. So if we are, or you are next as a leader, don't worry about criticism. Don't worry about maybe rejection from several part of the society, because there is the iron law. The important thing is you have a comprehensive calculation, we have a good information, and we what we select the best choices and decide. Don't worry about criticism, because the iron law is there is no decision without rejection. Always, whatever. For example, the government want to increase scholarship for student, for example. It is good, but maybe there is opposition to say, oh, it is not good because national expenditure went down, and so on and so on. Okay, it happened in national or in international decision. After decided, the policy or action will be evaluated by the people, by the government itself, to get what? To get feedback, like the Gabriel Almond chart, feedback, to make evaluation. The decision after evaluation, it will be new input. After correction, criticism, they will enter input, enter the new conversion process, and after that will birth a new decision, maybe correction. So this is kind of a circle, input, conversion, output, and back to input again after evaluation, again and again and again. It both in domestic politics and also in international foreign policy formulation. So if we see here, the model is the same. From David K. Hall is the same. International environment, domestic environment, international input. Yeah, maybe many diplomats try to make communication with the leader, and domestic input. Yeah, politicians, sources here, human resources, the expert maybe, or the prominent person, but not a governmental person in the society, political support, political party, outside the parliament. It is domestic input. So there is a formal and informal input enter the decision-making process. If you see this chart from David K. Hall, you see that this is executive heavy. Why? Because in the decision-making area, just executive leadership, formal structure, informal. And political support as domestic input, maybe the parliament. Why? As I said before, that foreign policy decision-making process, it is executive heavy. And generally, the foreign policy is bipartisan policy. What's the meaning of bipartisan? Bipartisan means the ruling parties and opposition support this. Ruling party and opposition support this. So decision-making process here, represent the national interest. Although like this, it doesn't mean there is no criticism from opposition. I say before, there is no decision without rejection. So if you are a leader, don't worry about criticism. Don't worry. Be wise to face criticism. Okay. And system output mean the product. After the executive discuss it and decide what kind of foreign policy, like next topic we will discuss what is the Sukarno policy, what is the until the President Jokowi policy. Okay, so international input, domestic input enter the decision-making process to be output. Decision, policies, and action like what I say before. Yes. Maybe there is something to be discussed, or I want to enter our topic today. I hope it can make more clear, not confusing, I think. Okay, thank you. Okay, this is our topic today. About the phases of Indonesian foreign policy. I chat you yesterday about the post-colonialism perspective, because Sukarno, when I describe Muhammad Hatta as liberal person, side by side with Sukarno. Sukarno at a glance, Sukarno operate post-colonialism perspective on foreign policy. But in my reading, in my trace of Sukarno history, Sukarno from the beginning not operate this perspective. Sukarno more expansive, expansionist from the beginning, since before Indonesian independence. Firstly, I say that Sukarno and Hatta, the couple is different in all front. Different in all front, Sukarno-Hatta. Ideologically, aspiration, the system of government, and so on and so on. And both represent their own group. So what is Sukarno? And Hatta discussion and debate happened on June 1945. From the beginning, Hatta was a federalist person, liberal person. That is why Hatta, from the beginning, Hatta disagree to include Papua now, West Papua and PNG now, and Northern Kalimantan as a part of Indonesia. This is Hatta position from the beginning. It happened in June 1945. But Sukarno at the time, the best government system proposed by Sukarno is not federalism. Hatta federalism. Sukarno suggests unitary system and expand the territory. This is the debate before independence, 3 months before proclamation. Expand not only Sumatra, Java, part of Kalimantan, and Celebes, but also Papua or PNG. Sukarno say Papua. Papua means all of, not only Western, but all of. So the difference and disagreement really happened from the beginning, before Indonesian independence. But at the time, there is a golden sentence. What is the golden sentence? Kemerdekaan adalah jembatan emas. Independence is the golden way to Indonesian to develop their country. So if the debate on ideology, if the debate on what is the form of the government next in Indonesia merdeka or a new country, if the debate on what this economy will be run, what kind of development will be executed after Indonesia merdeka, all of this discussion will never ending discussion. But all of the prominent leader at that time agree in one sentence. What is? Indonesia should be merdeka or independent as soon as possible. That is the only one decision in every discussion and long discussion at that time. So that is why Sukarno and Hatta joined together, because there is no decision before. So, okay, you and I, we should as a couple. Why? Because our sentence meet only in one sentence. Indonesia should be merdeka as soon as possible. There is no other discussion. If we discuss about the constitution, if we discuss on the philosophical grounds lah, or we talk about economy, there is no meet idea. There is no meeting idea at the time. So that is why the constitution of the first constitution of the Republic of Indonesia may be the slimmest, very thick, very tipis undang-undang, very short constitution, maybe the shortest in the world, just 37 articles in short sentence. Why? Because our first constitution or Undang-Undang Dasar 1945 itu that is only the temporary constitution. It is mentioned in this constitution that this is only temporary constitution. What for? To fulfill international law that a government should have constitution, leader, people, government, and region, so or territory. So it just to fulfill international law at that time. Okay, this is the background why Sukarno and Hatta should join together in the beginning of Indonesian independence. So the passage of Indonesian foreign policy divided in several phases. So firstly, the struggle for independence, 1945 until 1956, when Sukarno and Hatta to be a couple. The formation of Indonesian foreign policy, diplomacy, national interest. We remember about this national interest. The orientation is to recognize the sovereignty of baby country Indonesia. And since it happened in 1945 until 1946, 49, 45, 49, there are two international recognition on Indonesian independence. De facto, Indonesia proclaimed independent on 17 August 1945. But Netherlands or Dutch and European country recognized the Indonesian sovereignty on 27 December 1949. From 17 August 1945 until 27 December 1949, the Dutch and the European not recognize Indonesia as the subject of international law, still as belligerent. Yeah, that is the subject, but different. Okay. Okay, and Indonesia also changed the government system from presidential to be parliamentarian democracy in 1950. Asia-Africa Conference in Bandung, it is very popular, 1955. And Hatta resigned in 20 November 56. What happened? We will discuss now. And since 1 December 1956, for 17 years, Indonesia didn't have vice president. It's amazing, you know. We don't have vice president until 1973, after a general election. So very long time, Indonesia didn't have a vice president. This is the first place. The second, when Sukarno as a single figure in Indonesian foreign policy, Sukarno come to the several countries, rowing between corals. What is the coral? Coral mean Western Bloc and Eastern Bloc. Some they come to JFK, John F. Kennedy, Truman, later come to the Soviet Union, and in the same month go to China, go to Yugoslavia, go to many countries and meet the Che Guevara and also Castro. Play the game. This is the period when Sukarno is a single figure domestically and also in foreign policy. Why domestically? Because many political parties dismissed by Sukarno. The third page in New Order, this is Pak Suharto, General Suharto era, very long time, 1966 until 1999 or 1998. Politik, economy, security consolidation. We can build our country economically, but maybe politically, many discussion about this. And phase 4 is after Reformation. After Reformation, 1998, 99, 2015, what I say when government opened the participation from non-state actor to boost Indonesian diplomacy. And until today, we will discuss next what is President Jokowi's vision on foreign policy. Okay. We will start on Mohammad Hatta's statement. Mohammad Hatta stated, documented in a formal speech, our policy is independent and active. Independent. Independent because Indonesia doesn't wish to align herself with either of the opposition bloc, Western and Eastern bloc, Communist bloc and Liberal bloc. And active because it actively carried out a peaceful policy as a loyal member of United Nations. This statement documented in National Committee to September 48. Very famous speech from Muhammad Hatta. The original title is Mendayung Antara Dua Karang, rowing between the two corals. On 1948, he laid down the basic element of Indonesian foreign policy, namely bebas and aktif. Okay, it is more exploration on the meaning of independent. Indonesia play no favorites between two opposed blocs, USA and Soviet bloc, and follows its own path through the various international problems. However, it doesn't mean that Indonesia is prepared to participate in any third bloc designed to act as a counterpoise to the giant bloc. This is the difference again. The difference between Hatta and Sukarno. Hatta, okay, we are non-bloc. We are non-bloc. And we are not as a third bloc. It is Hatta position. But Sukarno, no. Sukarno, we are non-bloc, but really a new bloc. So the third bloc. Sukarno play in this role. Independent is also not simply translated in neutrality. Independent, it doesn't mean neutrality. Defining condition of impartiality toward belligerent state. Okay, impartial. Because neutrality is anti-social state. Now, neutral is not good. You should be not neutral to color your society. Neutral or something stated, oh, I am neutral, I am neutral. Maybe politician will do it. But scientist or student, there is no neutrality. You should choose something. Take your way. Neutrality is anti-social state in the Hatta point of view, and against the essence of word solidarity as stated in Article 41 and 43 of this UN. Yeah, reality in UN also respect to the neutrality position, but the meaning of neutrality here is not passive. It is different with passive, not passive. Neutrality is not in line with the purpose of the strengthening and upholding peace of Indonesian foreign policy. The meaning of active. The effort to work energetically for preservation of peace and the relaxation of tension generated by two blocs through endeavors supported, if possible, by the majority of members of the United Nations. So active, one again, not passive, and independent. Be careful about independent and neutrality. And active mean you do what you think it is best for all, not dictated by the dominant bloc, both West or Eastern bloc. This policy of peace took shape in the well-known resolution passed by the Asia-African in 1955 and take part in UN peace mission. Indonesia active. This is the Indonesian participation in international peace mission together with other countries. Hatta then further elaborate that independent and active comprise four significant elements. First, the conduct of foreign policy should be based on Pancasila. Pancasila is the five philosophical principle in Indonesia. Firstly, ketuhanan yang Maha Esa, ketuhanan yang Maha Esa. Believing one God, the one and the only God. Yeah. A Muslim society translated in Quran first as Kul huwallahu ahad. Say that God is one. God is one. Whatever religion, God is one. It is the first Pancasila. The second about kemanusiaan yang adil dan beradab. Kemanusiaan, humanity and just. Persatuan Indonesia, the unity of Indonesia. And kerakyatan yang dipimpin oleh hikmat kebijaksanaan dalam permusyawaratan perwakilan. This is about democracy, permusyawaratan, about democracy. And keadilan sosial bagi seluruh rakyat Indonesia. This is the fifth point of Pancasila. Justice for all society in Indonesia. So, foreign policy should be based on Pancasila, the philosophical grounds, the basic philosophy of our nation. So Indonesia is not a liberal country. Indonesia is not absolutely not atheist country. Indonesia is not liberal. Why? Because the first Indonesian philosophy is ketuhanan yang Maha Esa, the one and the only God. Secondly, should be God national interests as stated in Constitution. Hatta, as a scholar, Western educated person, respect to the Constitution. Number three, pursuit of in national interest should be run through an independent policy. Independent. National interest not dictated by West or East bloc. Indonesian foreign policy should be conducted pragmatically. Means should be resolved in the light of its own interest and should be executed in consonance with the situation and the fact it has to face. Liberal perspective. So it is clear that Hatta concern on international organization, United Nations, respect the United Nations, and respect and obey the international law or institution or international regime. Hatta respect about this. Yeah, if you read the liberalism perspective, you will clear catch that Hatta play in liberalist perspective on foreign policy. What is the objective of foreign policy? At that time, objective foreign policy related to national challenge at that time, maybe changed today. Hatta stated this in 1953. He stated that Indonesian objective in foreign policy were first, to defend the freedom of the people and guard the safety of the state. Freedom of the people and safety of the state. Why safety of the state? Because as new independent state, there are many challenges from others. And also internal. There are many rebellion in Indonesia at that time. Yeah, political movement in regional area. Number two, to obtain from overseas those articles of daily necessity required for increasing the standard of living of the population, food, especially rice, consumer goods of various kind, medicine, and so on. So this is real, because from 70 million people in Indonesia at that time, based on the Dutch statistic, 90% of the people of Indonesia at that time are poor. 90%. So the challenge firstly is how to fulfill their basic need, food. Number three, to obtain capital equipment to rebuild what had been destroyed or damaged, and capital for industrialization, new construction, and partial mechanism of agriculture. Hatta, as economist, Hatta basically graduated from economy department. So his expert is in economic calculation. So Hatta, welcome to foreign aid, industrialization, mechanism on agriculture, how to generate, export, import, and capital. So very pragmatic liberal policy from Hatta. If you see, there is no political ambition outside the Indonesia. There is no expansionist policy. There is no ambition to to co-optate other country or climb other country. No, Hatta free from this. Hatta just want to try to get what we can do to serve our national interests in another country, not how to expand influence or power or as expansionist. No, Hatta fully as pragmatist politic. And Hatta also said that our foreign policy to strengthen principles of international law and to aid in achieving social justice on international scale in line with UN, no expansion. To place special emphasis on initiating good relation with neighboring countries, the majority of which have in past occupied a position similar to Indonesia, in colonial era. Hatta strongly worked together with international organization, international law, UN. Why? Because Hatta himself, as a leader or president of Indonesian organization diaspora at that time. In 1928, Hatta, as young person, represent Indonesian student diaspora to meet in Bremen, a conference, how to arrange independent for colonialism, from colonialism. So Hatta is international activist based on international diaspora organization. So I understand well how the international law and international organization should be run. Okay. This picture is Sukarno, the young Sukarno, and his mentor, Haji Agus Salim. Haji Agus Salim, Malayan people, a friend of Hatta from Sumatra. This old man is very expert in diplomacy. He mastered Arabic, French, English, Dutch, 9 languages. And his uncle is the Imam of Masjidil Haram at the time. So why this old person is very influential to get recognition Indonesian independent from Middle East country at that time. We will take this history next. Okay. Still Hatta. Hatta also said that our foreign policy to seek fraternity among the nations through the realization of the ideal enshrined in the Pancasila, the 5 postulat, which constitutes the basic Indonesian philosophy. Okay, togetherness, because how to unite? We unite together to do together to get the good life. Very idealist person. In short, Indonesia will pursue a policy of peace and of friendship with all nations on the basis of mutual respect and non-interference with each other's structure of government. This is Hatta position. This is the origin of Indonesian foreign policy. Hatta rejected, as I mentioned before, Hatta rejected West Papua as a part of Indonesia from the first day of independence. In debate on June, before independence, Hatta also stated that Papua is not Malayan people, but Melanesian. So if we involve Papua as part of Indonesia, next day it will make a trouble for Indonesia. It is very, very different. So it is very hard for Indonesia to manage Papua. This is debate Hatta on BPUPKI. BPUPKI means the Committee for Preparation of Indonesian Independence on June 1945. And it happened today. Papua need kemerdekaan or independent today. Why? There is no leader from Papua support Indonesia merdeka since the beginning. And New York Treaty that legalized Papua joined to Indonesia in 1963. There were many discussion. Sometimes scholars say it is illegal, but we need next discussion about this. But what Hatta said about Papua is not. He suggests that Papua is not a part of Indonesia. That is why in 1949 in Konferensi Meja Bundar or roundtable discussion in Den Haag, Hatta agree to pending discussion on Papua, not as a part of Indonesia at that time. And Sukarno see this as you are not good for this issue. So this different emerge here. And Hatta also rejected the confrontation with Malaysia. When Sukarno come to the northern border, it is very, very risk policy from Sukarno. And because of the policy on confrontation with Malaysia at that time, Sukarno lost his supporter from almost outside Java. So the supporter for confrontation only Java, not all of the Javanese people, but only in Javanese island. But around the Indonesia, outside the Java reject the Sukarno policy on confrontation with Malaysia, because it is ahistoris, not based on sociological understanding, not based on the history that all of Malayan people, all of the people in this region are they have a strong relation historically each other. Okay. So consistent with the principle of independent and active policy, anti-colonialist, independent pragmatism, Indonesian foreign policy been oriented to gain recognition of Indonesian independence in 1945, 1949. Diplomatic strategies and successful point to strengthen Indonesian position in international area, but domestic still unstable and colored by rebellion. So there are many rebellion and sometimes bloody rebellion. In 1948, there is a communist rebellion in Madiun, Jawa Timur, East Java. And before this, when Indonesia had faced aggression to Dutch and Allied, there is a rebellion inside the Java people from Communist Party in Madiun. So it is very bloody rebellion, the first bloody rebellion at the time. And before this, in 1945, 10 November is very famous. 10 November 1945, there is a big war, bloody war in Surabaya, because Sekutu, what is Sekutu, a line from USA, UK and Australia and also Dutch come to Indonesia to occupy again. But the people from Indonesia face this and reject the ultimatum, and there is a very bloody war at the time. Okay. This is the history of Indonesian foreign policy, or the history of Indonesian diplomacy. For the first time after Indonesian proclamation, the Netherlands seek Britain to reoccupy Indonesia on its behalf. As I said before, the initial British force attempt to occupy Surabaya on 10 November 1945. The result is a very bloody one battle, rather long battle in Surabaya at the time. And General Malabi dead at the time. That is why the British force make ultimatum to Surabaya, and after that there is bloody war. Negotiation with Dutch led to the Linggarjati Agreement in March 1947, creating quasi-international status that Dutch recognized Republic of Indonesia de facto. So de facto. De facto in international law equal with just belligerents, belligerent. The conflicting parties belligerent. But not fully, so mentioned quasi, not fully the subject of international law. The new Republic of Indonesia just limited only Java Island, Madura. Madura is the small island in the northern Surabaya, and Sumatra only. Borneo excluded. Celebes excluded, Papua excluded, Bali excluded. No, Indonesia just little area. Okay. Why we at that time agree with this, although Indonesia to be smaller, very small compared with today? Yeah, because the national leader at that time play a tactic. The important thing is you recognize us. After that, we will make the other agreement internally that we are unite together to create a big country. Because in international law, this kind of agreement is a domestic area, not international area. For example, a region or a local government want to join a new state, independent state, is okay if a local government freely not dictate or intimidate with the bigger independent country to join. But please, you join in our independent country. It is democratic. It's no problem in international law. And it happened in Indonesia. Yogyakarta special region, when we stay today, is an independent state or government. When Indonesia proclaimed Independent Day in 17 August 1945. Why? Because Yogyakarta has their own diplomacy or relation with several countries in European country. So when Sukarno proclaimed the independence of Indonesia, the Sultan of Yogyakarta said that, oh, Mr. Sukarno, congratulations for your independent country. Your independent country. It is not mine, your independent country. And we will discuss what is the future of our relation. After that, 1 month after Indonesian independence, there is a special envoy from Yogyakarta to Batavia that Yogyakarta will join the new independent country, the Republic of Indonesia, with a special position. That is special region of Yogyakarta until today. So there is no governor election in Yogyakarta because we are special today. Governor always the Sultan in Yogyakarta. So the people of Yogyakarta may be to be a president or minister or general, but never be a governor. Yeah, this is the reality. And it is okay, international law, no problem. So, we can understand in 1945, 47 why the Indonesian leader at that time, okay, Indonesia just a little, but you recognize, okay. Internally, we say that, okay. The important thing is externally we recognize. After that, we make the other strategy. This is the successful diplomacy. It is fully story of diplomacy. By the Linggarjati Agreement 1947, with the de facto status, Indonesia gained international diplomatic achievement. As I stated below, before that, Haji Agus Salim is very influential person to play lobbying in Middle East. Why? Because his uncle just play phone, make communication with the other imam in Egypt, in Palestine, Al-Quds, to create recognition for Indonesia. What is the description? This is, sometimes this kind of history neglected by foreign scholar. The role of pan-Islamism spirit really play an important role in the recognition of new Indonesian independence. Why? Because historically we read that after the declaration of or the establishment of the Saudi Arabia, the Sunni ulama come to Southeast Asia, not only in Indonesia, but also in Malaysia and Brunei. There are many Habib, many Alawi, many Ahlul Bayt, family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, come to Nusantara, come to Southeast Asia. And majority of Southeast Asia Muslim, especially in Indonesia. At the time, more than 95% of people in Indonesia are Muslim. What kind of Muslim? All Sunni, all Sunni. So the spirit of pan-Islamism cell by Agus Salim to create lobby in Middle East. So that is why there are many countries recognize Indonesia. Although Saudi Arabia, why I say although? Because different madhab. Saudi Arabia Wahhabian, in Indonesia Sunni. But there is one agreement here. We are the same Muslim society. So it is easy for Middle East country to recognize Indonesia. So really in the beginning of our history in diplomacy, pan-Islamism spirit play a significant role. When we try to get recognition from other country, Musso create a rebellion, and as I said before, it is a bloody revolution. Maybe you will, there is a question, maybe why there is Communist Party in Indonesia? Although the 5 basic philosophy of Indonesia, in the first number 1 is Ketuhanan Yang Maha Esa, or believe in the one and the only God. Yeah, because the definition or the understanding of communism is very different from atheism. Communism is a social ideology or social theory, really. It is based on theory. I say just social theory or perspective that push the communalism, not atheism, I say in Indonesian context. In Indonesia, communism really first emerged in 1928. The leader of the Communist Party in Indonesia is Ustadz Kiai Haji or Ustadz Misbah. This is the religious leader. Said that the spirit of communism is the same with Islam, to protect, to advocate the mustad'afin. The mustad'afin mean the poor people, the proletar. The same spirit here bring to the national philosophy. And in Minangkabau at the time, there is maybe rather not logic today, but this is the historical context. At the time, there is the Partai Komunis Lokal Islami. How to understand this? Komunis Local Islami Communist Party. The leaders of this party is religious leader. It is in Minangkabau. So the understanding of communism at that time is very different from today. Yeah, that is why Communist Party as the fifth power as first general election in 1955. Okay, Indonesia, when Indonesia get de jure sovereignty or recognition sovereignty, Indonesia were not satisfied with the lack of sovereignty. It is real. A guerrilla war ensued, during which, yeah, there is serial war between 1945, 47 until 49. And there is initiative for Asian Conference, supported by India and Australia also, and Belgium, to create the ceasefire and agreement. Finally, sovereignty was transferred by Juliana, Queen Juliana, in 27 December 1949 in Round Table Agreement in Den Haag, Netherlands. This is de jure. That is why the Dutch or Netherlands government until today recognize that Indonesian independence is not 17 August 1945. But until today, they recognize that Indonesian independence was when sovereignty transferred. That is 27 December 1949. So until 2000 maybe, there is no Netherlands or Dutch diplomat come to our independence ceremony in embassy. Yeah, because they recognize that you're independent Indonesia, not 17 August, but 27 December. But today there is a better understanding among us to just respect each other. Okay, the domestic context in the decision-making process. In the first slide, I said about the decision-making process, and you meet there's international context and domestic context. Political and economic dynamic in 1950 until 1959. Our domestic politic is very dynamic, and that is why the economy also unstable and recession, and that is why the Communism Party can develop their membership huge number. Can you imagine that? The member of Communist Party, because of the economic bankruptcy at the time in Indonesia, the member of Communist Party, more than 2 million listed, 2 million listed as a member of Communist Party in Indonesia. So it is a political capital to what the political capital to push revolution in the next years. Okay, my slide really many, but the time is up, and I will continue this discussion, inshallah, tomorrow, inshallah. Maybe any question or confirmation? Because this time more than 10, so I think it is enough today, and I say thank you very much and see you next day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam, Dokter.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Please, Pak Ari, because the time is up. My slides many. I will continue next.
Thank you, Pak Takdir.
Yeah.
Hai